Welcome to this meeting of Council. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of this recording. Indigo Shire Council acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and the hills have walked these lands for thousands of years, as well as today, and we pay respect to the elders of the past and present. We'd also like to note the state of Victoria mourned the passing of Auntie Faye Carter by flying the flag at half-mast. Auntie Faye was a remarkable woman whose contributions to the community and culture are immeasurable. Auntie Faye was tireless, grounded, passionate and determined, and epitomising generosity. The Premier stated that Victoria wouldn't be the same without Auntie Faye. Auntie Faye was born in 1935 on Yorta Yorta country. She lived at the Cumragunja Mission in New South Wales until the age of 4, when her family took part in a historic walk-off in protest against its mismanagement, settling on the flats along the Goulburn River outside Mooroopna with other families who also left. Auntie Faye championed the Aboriginal child placement principle at VACA, ensuring Aboriginal children remained connected to their heritage. Even in her late 70s, she played a pivotal role in achieving a landmark native title settlement for the Dja Dja Wurrung people, returning over 266,000 hectares of Crown land. Her contributions earned her numerous honours, including the Centenary Medal, induction onto the Victorian Honour Roll of Women and the Victorian Aboriginal Honour Roll and the Order of Australia. Auntie Faye's generosity and dedication have left an indelible mark on Victoria, and she will be profoundly missed. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Do we have any apologies or leaves of absence? None? Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest with the agenda tonight? No. We'll now move to open forum. I'll just confirm that the person asking the question is in the gallery. So first I'll start with Robin McLeish, and I can confirm Robin is in the gallery. The Rutherglen Silo Art Precinct project for $10 million was originally submitted by Tourism Northeast to the Federal Government Growing Regions Fund, with a co-contribution of $2.5 million sourced from the $8.5 million approved grant for the Murray to the Mountains Rail Trail Enhancements Project. T&E was notified in May 2024 that the Silo Art project was unsuccessful. Indigo Council is now preparing a modified Silo Art project for $14.5 million to be submitted to the Regional Precincts and Partnerships Program. Question 1, why was the original grant application unsuccessful, and could this new application be deemed unsuccessful for the same reason? CEO.
Thank you. Mayor Price, as with all grant applications, we have a council applies for grants, funding pools become available to us. Those funding pools will often have a set of criteria, and those funding opportunities will also often be oversubscribed. And so we'll put in strong bids. We've got a great track record for securing grants. We'll put in strong bids. However, in the end, it all comes down to the number of applications any of the grant pools receive, how well each of those applications scores against the criteria they're trying to satisfy for that grant fund, and they'll score them accordingly. So we did put in for the, as you've noted, Robin, the Federal Growing Regions Fund, and we weren't successful on that occasion. Now, that doesn't mean that this application will not be successful in another grant pool, which is what we're going for at the moment. So I see no reason why the unsuccessful nature of the first one should preclude us from trying again with a different grant fund, which has slightly different objectives.
Second question, why has the Silo Art project cost increased from $11.5 million to $14.5 million? This new cost is close to council's estimates for an indoor heated pool, which has been recommended in budget submissions. Can council provide information to establish which project would provide the greatest community benefits? CEO.
So thank you for the question, Robin, and through you, Mayor Price. This question sort of has a few different angles to it. The cost increase itself isn't related to any, say, changing costs, but rather, as I indicated before, we applied for one grant pool which had certain criteria, and we determined that another grant pool became available, and the application was then modified to try and maximise its chance of success against that new grant pool. So the new grant pool being regional precincts and partnerships program had different criteria and different weightings on it. And in particular, it emphasised partnerships. And as you've noted in the report that's on today's agenda, there was in particular a focus on this new application on First Nations partnerships. So we restructured the application to try to maximise its chance of success to better suit that fund and what it was trying to achieve. Noting in this particular case, the different criteria, so it was structured to suit that. The question goes on to talk about cost versus an indoor heated pool and whether the benefits were greater one versus the other. I guess they're two very different projects. The Rutherglen project would have extremely great community benefit to the Rutherglen itself. It would revitalise a precinct, be a great opportunity for that town, and a lot of tourism benefit and a lot of economic development benefits, as well as cultural benefits for that town. The notion of the heated pool for Beechworth is a whole different set of benefits, not so much tourism, but obviously other benefits to locals. So they're very different projects. There's no doubt the Beechworth pool is on our advocacy list, and we are out there looking for grants for that as well. The harsh reality is with pools that there are no grant funding pool grants available across Australia for pools. So we'll keep looking for opportunities, but there aren't any. There's virtually no money around for pools, but there is money around for that we see as an opportunity for the Rutherglen Arts Precinct. So you can't really compare one to the other. They're both priorities, but only one has a grant opportunity, and that's the one we're going for. We're proposing in today's agenda that we go for.
The third question, what will happen to the $2.5 million that was to be leveraged from the $8.5 million rail trail enhancement project that will not be required if the new grant application is approved? CEO.
So the $2.5 million still is required. Now that $8.5 million is spread across 3 councils, and Indigo's portion of that $8.5 million, the 2.5 was proposed to be spread across the Rutherglen Arts Precinct as well as the Beechworth Railway Precinct. And so there was a component allocated to the Rutherglen Arts Precinct, and the proposal was that allocation to the Rutherglen Precinct has got some great opportunity to do some works there. However, we took the opportunity to leverage and add the allocation to for the Rutherglen Arts Precinct to the grant opportunity that the Growing Regionals Funds provided. And so we thought we could leverage off both and have an $11 million project instead of a $1.5 million project. That wasn't successful. The Regional Precincts of Partnerships program became available. So we're looking to, again, to leverage our contribution to Arts Precinct and add to that a state grant fund. If that's not successful, then we'll retreat back and we'll just spend the $2.5 million as was originally proposed between the Rutherglen Arts Precinct and the Beechworth Railway Precinct. And there's still plenty of good outcomes that can be achieved with that remaining amount.
Thank you, CEO. I'll now go to the second set of questions, and can I just confirm that Peter Twigg is in the gallery? Thank you. I can confirm. The first question is, will the applicant for the 24-hour service station truck stop on the corner of Federation Way and the Murray Valley Highway, Rutherglen, be required to provide environmental impact assessments for both Lake Mudamere and Sunday Creek? The Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Thanks, Peter. As part of the planning process, we refer to statutory authorities. So in this case, council has referred the application to, amongst others, the Catchment Management Authority and also the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action, and they will advise. These departments are the appropriate authorities on these matters, and if they need any further information or they want particular studies done, then they will ask that of the applicant. This work's not yet completed, so I can't provide any further details on that.
The second question. The position for the construction of the 24-hour service station truck stop at the intersection of Federation Way and the Murray Valley Highway is a noted black spot with a number of fatalities recorded. Currently, the majority of traffic travels through this intersection on the Murray Valley Highway at speeds of 100 kilometres per hour. Trucks and light vehicles entering and exiting both these roads to and from the proposed service station truck stop will greatly alter current traffic conditions and have a detrimental impact on road safety. What actions have council staff taken with Vic Roads to insist on a roundabout as a condition for the service station truck stop to improve traffic safety for all motorists? The Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Thank you. In a similar way, the Department of Transport and Planning are the authority that deal with that. So again, we referred it to them, and whether it's a roundabout or whatever it is, if they do support this application, they would then stipulate what would need to be done in that area and for that site. And at this stage, we haven't heard back. We haven't got details on that one.
And the third question, is the proposal to construct a 24-hour service station truck stop, which will include a retail outlet, permissible under council's current zoning for the proposed site? The Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
That is the question of the hour, isn't it? So council goes through the planning process to answer that exact question. And we're partway through. As I said, we're up to the referral stage. We need to wait for that to finish, and then we will go through and complete our assessment. This will come to council in any way. It will be a council decision, and what we need to do is to finish the assessment against the planning scheme to know whether it comes to council with a recommendation of refusal or a recommendation of support with conditions. But at this stage, we haven't been through the process to finish it.
The third set of questions are from Charles Mitchell. Can I confirm that Charles is in the gallery? Yes, I can. The first question, councillors, the budget for this financial year will create an unequal, unfair financial burden on many Indigo Shire Council ratepayers. The unequitable imposition on farmers last year was an extraordinary 7 times the rate cap of 3.5%. And this year, the proposal by council is to impose a rate that is almost 8 times the rate cap of 2.75% for residential vacant land owners. The decision to adopt a fairer rate system resides with councillors, as the current system is flawed and impose an unequal rate burden on ratepayers, which council can address. Question, will the Mayor support her community and a fairer rate system to ensure all ratepayers are equitably treated and all ratepayers are only charged a general rate of no more than 2.75% for this coming financial year? The Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Okay, thank you, Charles, for the question. I'll try and be brief. I could talk for hours on this. So the question suggests that uneven is unfair, and like a lot of taxation, everybody gets charged a little bit different. So the uneven rate increase is not a flaw in the current system. It's a fundamental part of taxation strategy. Owners of vacant residential property, for example, over the last year have become wealthier. Their properties on average have gone up by $37,000, which is about 12% increase in their wealth. The way the current system works is that if you become wealthier, you pay a bit more tax. It's a bit like income tax or a lot of other taxes that we're used to. So their 12% increase in wealth attracts around about a 10% increase in rates. Their average rate increase, so for that $37,000 gain in wealth, their average rates are going up $161 per year. So it just follows, the rates follow the wealth. But council doesn't get any more money out of this. If one area pays more, other areas pay less. And so to really be fair about this, instead of just focusing on the ones that go up, you need to talk about the ones that go down. So for example, farmers in the last year have lost on average about 1% of their property value. So valuations they've gone down about 1%, and the rates system follows that decrease. So the average farming rate has gone down 1%, and that's the counterbalance to the side that you're proposing. There was an alternate rating model that was proposed partly as part of the budget, but also for the revenue and rating strategy, and it suggests that everybody should pay the same rate increase. So the property owners of residential vacant that have gained significantly should only pay 2.75%, and the farmers who have lost 1%, instead of their rates going down 1%, they should pay 2.75%. That goes against the taxation principles that you see pretty much everywhere else. So it's not a flaw. Some pay more, some pay less. What I would really clearly point out is, on average, when you balance that out, it's 2.75% minister's rate cap. We set it, the Essential Services Commission checks us every year and reports on compliance. This council has always been compliant, and we will achieve the rate cap. The only last point that I had here was that's to do with the budget. As I said, the revenue and rating strategy is also, it's now finished its exhibition period. We'll bring that back to council, we expect probably next month, and there we can have a more full discussion on different rating strategies. So to sum up, yes, there's a headline of some going up, and if you only focus on the headline and you ignore the counterbalance, it's not a particularly fair or genuine statement to make.
The second question, the environmental management charge was set up initially for the rehabilitation of the 4 closed tip sites, with the charge expanded to incorporate waste-like items, and has collected over $7.5 million in general revenue. The charge is optional, and this sits with councillors. In late 2023, Local Government Victoria indicated that if councils were to continue such charges, then they should be incorporated in general rate revenue. If this is to occur in 2025-26, this would result in a general rate estimated at 7%. Whilst council has said it will work with the ESC, they have responded to me in that the legislation only permits an application for a rate variation. Question, will the Mayor, knowing that the council charge is optional and that the council has collected sufficient funds over 15 years but not delivered, will the Mayor continue the charge that will see general rates in 2025-26 go to 7%? The Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
So levy's been in place for decades. It was and still is used by lots of councils throughout Victoria. Covers a range of services, not just landfill, but that's acknowledged in the question. The Minister has expressed a preference for councils to not charge this separately, but to put it into general rates. It's can't remember what is it, a practice note? It's not a practice note, but it's a governance guideline. This council will comply with that. So even though it's not mandatory, we have set a course to do that over the next year. I think the main point in this, though, is that it's a bit like the last question. If you focus on one side of the equation and not the other, it sounds really unbalanced. What this essentially is moving a charge from one area to another area. There will be no net gain for council. There will be no net cost to ratepayers. It is zero impact, and it just changes one to the other. What it comes out of is a levy, and what it goes into is general rate. So, it's not quite a lie because rates would increase, yes. But if you don't look at what goes down, it's not quite the truth either. So it will be a zero net impact. And yeah, a question that says 7% rate increase next year isn't perhaps explaining what will really happen. The last point I have is that in the budget report that's at tonight's meeting, there's some words in there about this very issue, and the council is setting a course to make that change from one levy to another. Thank you.
And the third question. Council's performance as rated by the community hit rock bottom in 2023 with an overall score of 50. The recent release of Indigo's 2024 Local Government Community Satisfaction Survey identified a slight upturn. However, the recommendations that have been essentially repeated over the last several years have not been acted upon, and community surveys by Indigo Community Voice mirror the needs of the recent survey. The question, will the Mayor give an assurance to the community that the Council will develop and undertake a commitment to not only listen but act on ratepayers' concerns and put a physical performance plan in place for the CEO within the next 3 months? So I'd answer that question to say that Council does manage the performance of the CEO, which is required under the Local Government Act. A performance plan is already in place, and a performance review against a range of KPIs is conducted annually. The CEO's performance assessment process is overseen by a CEO Remuneration and Employment Committee, and the membership of this committee includes an independent panel member as required under the Act. The performance review process is also coordinated by an independent external contractor. That brings us to the end of open forum, and we will now move to community and council achievements. We'd like to start by recognising tidy towns, and so I've got something to read out, and then I might ask for Anne and Iris if they might like to respond, and then we would like to receive the award from you both. The 2024 National Tidy Towns Award weekend, held from the 3rd to the 6th of May 2024, took place in Gascoyne Junction, WA, a remote outback community boasting a population of 72, which clinched the 2023 National Tidy Town title. The weekend saw participation from all state finalists converging for a dynamic blend of networking opportunities, project showcases, outback hospitality, and the much anticipated awards gala. This year, Beechworth impressed the judges with initiatives such as the Indigo Future-Proof Action Group, the People of Beechworth exhibition, and Beechworth's Honey Bee School, all of which were winners in their individual categories, with our town of Beechworth being crowned the overall winner of the 2024 Keep Australia Beautiful National Tidy Town of the Year Award. This prestigious accolade stands as a shining testament to the commitment and dedication of the Beechworth community towards fostering a more sustainable, resilient and beautiful Australia. We have a proud history in these awards, winning State Tidy Town of the Year in 2009, 2014, 2017, 2019 and 2023, and the National Tidy Town of the Year in 2010, 2020 and 2024. Please welcome Iris Manick, OAM, and Anne Wilson from the Beechworth Tidy Towns Committee, who tirelessly source and manage entries for both the state and national awards each and every year to present Council with Beechworth's 2024 National Tidy Towns Award. Can we get a round of applause, please? Want to present it first or me to speak? Right, so we'll turn around. We've got Sam to take a photo of you as well.
Take a photo. Yeah, okay.
Position us where you like, Sam.
Yep. Okay, I'm presenting the award. It's made out of,
Let's stand up here so that people.
it's made out of mookrite from just outside Gascoyne Junction. And it's the only place in the world where it is mined. And you can be rest assured I won't be moving there.
Thank you very much.
Now, I'd just like to take, next year, by us winning this, next year, Indigo Shire has to host the national 2025 awards. Anne and I will do a lot of the groundwork, but KAB will come to the Shire and just so that we can still have our stamp on it, we're doing a little bit of, but it is up to Indigo Shire to host. And believe me, after being in Gascoyne Junction, our CEO's got big shoes to fill because the CEO over there, he carted Anne and I and the national judge all around the countryside. And I mean, we went out back, we went up mountains, we went, you got no idea the
We found
places.
all the dirt and the dust and the red.
He found the cattle that were wandering on the road that I never thought, never saw, no fences. Cattle have the right of way. Just
You've got to stop if
you've got to
on the
stop
road.
if a cow goes across the road. But it was a wonderful experience. I've never been to Outback Australia like that. And it was just a real eye-opener, just what a wonderful country we've got. And to think 72 people put this award on. They came, they were our drivers, they were our, they fed us.
Sorry about that.
They had breakfast, morning tea, lunch.
In other words, they overfed us.
Every meal you could possibly imagine, and they all cooked it and presented it. So as I said, we've got a big shoes to fill. But it was, and I would like to thank Indigo Shire Council because it is very, very expensive to go from Beechworth to just Gascoyne Junction's 170 k's out of Carnarvon. So we were really in the outback, and thanks to Shire, they were able to give us a little bit of funding to get us there. So, and that's, we'd like to thank, and we had a ball. We did. But like I said, we can do it. We'll put on a great show because it's showcasing it to every state in Australia, except for Queensland, unless Queensland changes their mind. They didn't enter the last 2 years, but all the other states will be here, and they're waiting. They can't wait to get here. So, but what I need to say before that, in July we've got state judging, and this year Anne and I have entered 3 Indigo Shire Council projects. The Energy Award, which is our climate action, which the councils will know about this. Our litter, and that's the Detoxing Your Home program. And of course, our wonderful courthouse. So they've been entered. So keep our fingers crossed. If we do as well as we did this year, we'll do as well again. And this time, Indigo Shire itself will be recognised, hopefully. I can't guarantee that we'll win, but hopefully, yeah. Okay, and thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say that Iris and Anne have worked so hard that they deserve everything that they have achieved. Well done. Yes, I went up to Canberra and we went to Government House and we won the national award. Well done.
And if they need anyone to convince Queensland to participate, I think we should send both of you up there and oh, we don't want any more competition. Okay, right. So thank you again. We've got another person that we would like to recognise in the community and council achievements for the meeting tonight, and that is Frances Walsh. And I'd like to read something out for you, Frances. It is with great pleasure that we'd like to acknowledge and celebrate the significant contributions of Frances Walsh to the East Timorese Friendship Group and the enduring connection between Indigo Shire and Aotearoa Island. Following East Timorese independence in 1999, the East Timorese consulate sought to forge links between East Timorese and Australian communities. Under the leadership of Senor Abel Gutierrez, the East Timorese Consul General of Australia, efforts were made to promote interest in the new nation and facilitate the establishment of friendship links with local communities. In 2004, the seeds of what would become a lasting partnership were planted by members of the Indigo Shire Junior Council, who proposed the formation of a local East Timorese friendship group. Early visits to Aturo Island confirmed the real development needs of its people and highlighted the genuine opportunities that a partnership with Indigo Shire Council could bring to both communities. The vision was realised in 2008 when the then Deputy Mayor, Francis Walsh, travelled to Aturo Island for the signing of a formal Memorandum of Understanding, solidifying the friendship between Indigo Shire and Aturo Island. This year marks the 20th anniversary of that initial proposal by our Junior Council, a milestone that allows us to reflect on the enduring impact of this friendship. Francis Walsh, an Indigo Shire councillor from 2003 to 2008, played a pivotal role in this journey. Your commitment to fostering this relationship extended beyond your tenure as a councillor. Francis has since travelled to Aturo approximately 4 times, acting as a key contact and support for both staff and students on the island for many years. Your dedication has been instrumental in maintaining and strengthening the bond between our communities. Moreover, Francis has been a passionate advocate for educating our youth about the importance of this connection. She has presented to the Junior Council each year and more recently to the Youth Ambassadors, even after her term as councillor had ended. Through these presentations, she has inspired young people in Indigo Shire to support vital projects on Aturo Island, fostering a spirit of international cooperation and community service. Today, we express our deepest gratitude to you, Francis, for your unwavering dedication and invaluable contributions to the East Timorese Friendship Group. Your efforts have not only supported the people of Aturo, but have also enriched the lives of our community members, particularly our youth, by teaching them the importance of global citizenship and solidarity. Francis, your work has left an indelible mark on both Indigo Shire and Aturo Island. We'd like to thank you for your vision, your commitment, and your enduring legacy. Please join me in giving a heartfelt round of applause to Francis Walsh.
Well, I have a lot to say. I have a lot of people to thank. And first of all, I have to thank the Shire, because when you bring along this rather unusual idea to get in touch with Timor and start working with Timor, they just looked aghast and said, why? Why would you do that? But they haven't been in touch with the junior councillors at that stage, who were very impressed, and I was impressed with them. And they were very certain that I should do something about it. So it wasn't me who did all this, it was the junior councillors. I was given the orders, junior council, to get in touch with Abel Gutierrez. And I said to them, well, who's Abel Gutierrez? Oh, he's the Consulate General. All right. Where is he? Well, he's going to be in Wangaratta tonight. And if you ring such and such, you'll talk to him. I said, how do you know that? Oh, I know that. So, okay. I rang Wangaratta. Abel Gutierrez was there. He was a very, very interesting person. He talked a lot about Timor and everything else, and then agreed to come and meet with the other students. So that's how that all started. And Abel Gutierrez said to them, I said, how many pencils, how many crayons, how many textures have you got? So the kids all looked in their bags. Oh, I've got 70, I've got 100, I've got 35. He says, well, the children in Aturo have none. This is for the very beginning. This was in 2004. Then he said to them, have you got a desk and chairs? And the kids said, of course we have. Yes, we do. When we went to Aturo, there were some kids who were sitting on bags of wheat with just a board across their knees, and that was their desk. They had no windows in any of the places. And to me, it was very amazing to see what was happening. So with the support of the Indigo Shire, they have been very good by supporting what's happening and also sponsoring 2 or 3 of the students. We worked on a progress of having sponsoring students, 2 students a year, a boy and a girl. And we insisted it was a boy and a girl. We had to talk very quickly to some of the council, the chefs actually, who are our equivalent of the mayors of Aturo, to make sure that everything was right. They wanted more than 2. They wanted about 10 people. And we just said, no, we haven't got enough money for 10 people. And because everything is done in a volunteer basis and all money has come through the volunteers, that was the way it was to go. We had support from the council, and I must admit from Irene, my partner, who went with me a lot of times. And I think somehow we've been to Timor more than 4 times, probably 8, I think it is. And there was another person on the island who was very helpful. It was Gabrielle Sampson. Now, Gabrielle Sampson is from Queensland. And when we went to Aturo the first time, she was living on the island in a residential area, and she was working with all the kindergartens. Then other people involved was Marcelo. Marcelo is a Timorese, and he's a great bloke. His English is improving, but it's not as good as it could be. When we first got in touch with Marcelo, we had to speak in 2-syllable words, because you've got to be exactly right when you speak to people who don't have English as a second language. He probably has about 6 other languages, but not English. You have to thank Roman Luan, who are the non-governmental sponsor group, who do all the work for us, and a group of people at Roman Luan, underneath the sponsorship of Marcelo, do the toilets for us. And at the present rate, we have about 38 or 40 toilets that we have built on Aturo. When we first went in Aturo, there was not a toilet anywhere. There's a hole in the ground, but there was no toilets. So in those times, and when we would go over, and each time I've been over with Irene, we checked out the toilets and see where they're going. And the thing that amazes me, they never know when we're coming. But those toilets are always spotlessly clean, and there is no smells. And they've got the best view over the ocean anywhere. It's a pleasure to sit on them, actually. It all started through the junior council, as I said, but over the years, you've got to have support of other people when you come up with these grandiose ideas. And I think that this is my greatest achievement as far as I'm concerned. And with all the support of everybody else, it has been very hard work. We've had some very interesting experiences. We've definitely gone across the ocean on a leaky boat. We know all about that. Over a 3,000 metre gap on a leaky boat. That's a really experience. So on behalf of Irene and myself, I'd like to thank everybody and thank the Shire for their support. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Make sure it's the right way up. I have been known to hold things upside down. Thank you. Thanks so much. Pardon? Come on.
Come on this way, come on.
She has done the work as well. Even more so than me, but never mind. Thank you.
We'll now move on to condolences. For anyone in the gallery, you're more than welcome to continue to stay for the meeting, but you can leave at any point as well.
Stay at your
Peter Croucher, you would like to have a condolence motion that you think a few of these people might like to stay for as well. So Peter Croucher, you've got a condolence?
I would like to pay tribute to Rob Porter, who passed away recently. Rob was a passionate, positive and enduring worker for the people of Arturo Island. He's been involved in the Indigo Shire Friends of Arturo for 15 years as a committee member and as chair from 2016 to 2020. As a committee member, he was the voice of calm, the clever yet careful thinker who always supported ideas and initiatives that he thought would benefit the people of Arturo Island. His support for the people of the island, his enthusiasm and his never-ending commitment was consistent about the work of the committee regarding their programs of student scholarships, composting toilets and the great need of the people of Timor-Leste and in particular the people of Arturo Island. The Arturo Friendship Committee will miss him and so will the people of Timor-Leste and Arturo Island. Vale Rob Porter, we thank you. And before I finish, Madam Mayor, I also would, as a member of the Arturo Island, as a council representative, I'd also like to endorse what you said about Frances Walsh and wish her all the best in the future. And also to thank Jess Rule, who was our person from Indigo Shire who helped on the committee as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Councillor Horn, you have a condolence that you would like to note for the meeting?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Our condolences to the family and friends of well-known children resident. Can you hear me? No? Is that better? Our condolences to the family and friends of well-known Chiltern resident Joy Lee, who I'm sad to report passed away earlier this month. During the days prior to moving to this building, Council rotated meetings around the Shire, and Joy and her friend Pat O'Connor, also deceased, were regular attendees at every council meeting. Whether it was Waganya or Stanley or Yakandanda or wherever, Joy and Pat would be there right in the front row, taking notes as we went through the agenda items, and would certainly let us know if we slipped up with a date or if there was any uncertainty about a particular point. In 2024, Joy received the Australia Day Award for Chiltern District Certificate of Achievement. She was an inaugural member of the Indigo Community Access Committee during that time as chair until March 2018. She was a member of the Community Grants and Awards Advisory Committee until August 2018. Along with her work as a nurse at the Corowa Hospital, Joy was a very active and willing worker, always helping others with a stalwart raffle ticket seller. Locals always knew better than to go down the street without a couple of coins because she was bound to catch them no matter the weather. And although they didn't always agree, she was on various committees with the equally well-known Rex Fuge. Their shared passion for the township saw them overcome their differences and enabled the completion of a number of significant projects, such as the coordination of the grant writing, fundraising and support works for the refurbishment of the historic Chiltern Grandstand. Joy will be remembered as a kind and caring community member who loved her garden and rescuing dogs. Unfortunately, I don't have a contact detail for Joy's family, so I was wondering if we could put a notice in the Chiltern Grapevine.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. And Councillor Tyson, you'd also like to note a condolence.
Yeah, I'd just like to note that Lou Lieberman, a very respected and a hardworking person in the Northeast who advocated greatly for our communities, has passed away. And I'd like to pass on our condolences to his family as well, please.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. We'll now move to item 8, which is confirmation of the minutes from the previous meetings. The recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 14th of May 2024, as published on council's website, be confirmed. Can I have somebody to move that, please? Moved councillor Gaffney. Seconded councillor Tyson. Would you like to speak to the motion, councillor Gaffney? Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 9 is business arising from the previous minutes, and just to note what's in there, the public art policy and the fair access for women and girls to participate in sport policy both received no submissions, and so therefore those policies are both adopted as per the council resolutions. And there are petition responses for the Tangambalanga Kiwa Men's Shed and the Chiltern Swimming Pool petitions. Item 10 is petitions, and item 10.1 is PP 230184 petition for 2804 Federation Way, Rutherglen. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 receives the attached petition in relation to the proposed fuel service station located at 2804 Federation Way, Rutherglen. 2 notes that this petition will be considered as an objection in accordance with section 57(1) of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. And 3 notes that the concerns raised in this petition will be considered throughout the remaining planning permit process, and information regarding objections will be presented to a future council meeting as part of the relevant planning report. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Tyson, seconded councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson, do you wish to speak?
No, this issue is causing quite a bit of concern within the community. I'd like to note that we've had the petition and that will follow the correct processes.
Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak?
No.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11 is planning and corporate services, and item 11.1 is the council plan and municipal public health and wellbeing plan 2021 to 2025, year 4. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 notes that no submissions were received during the 21-day exhibition period from the 15th of May to the 4th of June 2024. And 2, adopts the council plan and municipal public health and wellbeing plan 2021 to 2025, year 4. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Shepherd, seconded councillor Croucher. Councillor Shepherd.
This might be the last opportunity we have as our 7 councillors to pat ourselves on the back, along with the community, on the great things that we've done in this last 3 years. We're now going to approve the 4th year, but the list of the things we have done, really on our behest, but also the community had a lot to say in creating this council plan. So the Rutherglen Place plan, the destination management plan, the Indigo Creative Arts strategy that I've been involved in with Councillor Croucher, which has been a great thing we've enjoyed. Chiltern Land Precinct plan, our RAP, our Reflect Reconciliation Action Plan, Chiltern Destination Playground Concepts, Beechworth Courthouse Kelly Trials, the Historic Master Plan that the Cultural Heritage Committee's been involved with, all the EV charging stations, the Community Engagement Strategy, Indigo Epic, Beechworth Yakaneta Rail Trail. I'll stop there, but the list goes on and on and on. So I think it's been an amazing council plan, this one in particular. And I think we need to congratulate ourselves and the community on having this foresight, and for the staff in being able to enact all those plans that we put down and say that we should happen, and they then have to go and make it so. So yeah, a great plan, and 1 year left with the actions to occur are in the report. So a few more things to get done, but a lot has already been done.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak as second?
I just feel a significant number of projects and strategies and capital investment that has been achieved in the first 3 years certainly exemplify the success of the council plan and municipal public health and wellbeing plan 2021 to 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.2 is consideration of the 2024-25 budget submissions. The item is for decision. The recommendation.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make an amendment, please.
Yes, councillor.
At point 6, that the proposal by Indigo Community Rating Reference Group for a fairer rate levying method be adopted by amending the rate in the dollar to be levied as a general rates for each type of class of land.
Can we have that repeated again once more, quite a bit slower, so that we can capture that, so that each councillor can have the benefit of understanding and reading that as well? Thanks, councillor Horn.
I wish to make an amendment at point 6 that the proposal by Indigo Community Rating Reference Group for a fairer rate levying method be adopted by amending the rate in the dollar to be levied as general rates for each type of class or class of land.
Okay, so to confirm, councillor Horn, you are moving a motion that is the entirety of the recommendation that we have in the agenda papers with the inclusion of what you've just mentioned at item 6?
Yes.
So I'm going to read out the remainder of that recommendation while we capture that item 6. Put your microphone on, yep. No, it is.
If this fails, that we go back to the original motion.
So you're foreshadowing that
Yep.
if this motion lapses, we return to the original recommendation.
Thank you. Yep.
So I'll read the recommendation that Council 1 receives the attached draft budget responses and thanks submitters for their assistance and feedback. 2, endorses the management responses detailed in this report in relation to the budget requests. 3, notes the actions arising from the submissions. A, improved communication to native vegetation rules and consequences for non-compliance. B, return to higher levels of footpath investment in future budgets. C, continue to work with the Acadenda Sports Park Committee to prioritise and seek funding for master plan implementation. D, improved capital works information in the next budget cycle. E, completion of the toilet strategy report in 2024-25. F, respond to questions raised by submitters. 4, makes no financial changes to the budget as a result of the submissions. And 5, notes that council staff will respond to each submitter with a copy of this report and the council resolution. So that recommendation, as well as point 6, is the motion that councillor Horn would like to move. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Do we have a seconder for that motion? No, we don't. So that motion lapses and we will return to the recommendation. Councillor Shepherd, you foreshadowed that you would like to return to that. Would you like to move that motion? So that's the motion is now the recommendation as it appears in the agenda papers, moved by Councillor Shepherd, seconded by Councillor Tyson. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'd like to thank the submitters really, because we have discussed all of these submissions at length at briefings. And I've noted that some people have said that we only have a few submissions at this end of the budget review, but I think we're finally getting this right, where most people now have an opportunity to be engaged at the beginning of the process. And so therefore, they put in their submissions right at the very beginning, they give their feedback, and I know that each department has to take on what those submitters have suggested, and they have to come back and explain how they have taken them on. So I imagine that people who have done this at the beginning are now starting to see the budgets reflect the things that they're asking for at this end. And so we end up with some genuine submitters, but not as many as we used to have. So I note that there's a number with good reasons why they haven't been, the budget hasn't changed to support them, or saying where they have been supported. The one I was interested in bringing up, if I could, was, I think we've all got an email from the Beechworth Land Care Group saying that they're concerned about the illegal clearance of native vegetation. And we've discussed the fact that during the budget process, staff considered options to increase enforcement in this area. However, this did not make the final budget proposals. And we know that this is a Victorian-wide issue. And I'm just wondering if I could ask, is there an opportunity for us to be advocate or something on behalf of this one in particular? Because I think it's more than just Indigo Shire concern. And thank you for Bulls for raising it again. But I'm just wondering, is there an action beyond what we've said here that we could do to perhaps advocate to the state government about how we can support this? And I would ask perhaps Greg Pinkerton. Yep.
So the Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Yeah, thank you. The enforcement of native veg is something that we all care pretty deeply about, and whatever we do, we always know that we can do more. I personally, I think advocating for additional help from state would be certainly worthwhile doing, and we will continue every year to look at this area and do what we can.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to those who took the time to submit. Hopefully some of those same people have submitted to the rating and revenue strategy that we'll have coming to council in next month's meeting, so that we can actually put them up in front of the public and debate it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold.
Thank you. I'd like to concur just with the words of Councillor Shepherd, in the sense that the community put in a lot of effort to provide input into the budget process very early on. It was fascinating to hear the diversity of inquiries, the responses through the council offices and their departments. It was great to see the interest that the community had, and I'm very pleased with where we've landed, though I appreciate for some people there's not enough money to do everything that we would like, and for others we're raising too much money and people would like their rates to be lower. I probably fall into both those groups. So sympathy to the entire community in that space, but I do think we've landed with something that is well balanced, is reflective of what the community seek from us, but also some of those outlying requests that may not be important to everybody, but are a significant difference to a smaller group of people. And I think it's important that we don't forget people who perhaps with a quiet voice or a small need are still part of this community, and that equity and diversity inclusion matters across the board. I also was really interested in the constant ask for improvement on things like the capital works reporting and the budget reporting. And if somebody could explain how to make a very, very complex document simple, I'd be very pleased with that myself as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Councillor Horn, you'd also like to speak to the motion?
I just like to acknowledge that the proposal put in by the Indigo Community Rating Reference Group actually reflected the opinions of 36 different people, even though it was considered as one submission.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Shepherd as the mover.
Just to reiterate, thank the community for their initial phase 1 input, and then for these final phase 2. We really appreciate your input.
Thank you, councillors. I'll now put it to the vote. All those in favour? And those against? So again, I'll ask all those in favour to raise their hand. Councillor Gold, Shepherd, Price, Gaffney, Tysell, Croucher. Those against? Councillor Horn. The motion is carried. We'll now go to item 11.3, the adoption of Indigo Shire Council 2024-25 budget. The item is for decision, and the recommendation is that 1, council, having given public notice and having received and considered submissions, adopts the attached 2024-25 budget, including the budgeted financial statements as defined by the Local Government Finance and Reporting Regulations 2014. 2, the fees and charges for the 2024-25 as listed in the attached 2024-25 budget be effective from 1st of July 2024. 3, the CEO or delegate gives public notice of this decision to adopt the following: a 2024-25 budget in accordance with Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020, the 2024-25 10-year financial plan, and the 2024-25 revenue and rating plan. 4, council records the following reasons for the decision to adopt the 2024-25 budget: that it reflects the efficient and effective allocation of resources having regard to the objectives, roles and functions of council. It is appropriate to prioritize the priorities of council having regard to the council plan and council's long-term financial strategy. Council notes the attached income and expense report that provides additional information regarding each service budget. The declaration of rates and charges, the amount intended to be erased, the amount of $20,196,967 or such greater amount as is lawfully levied as a consequence of this resolution be declared as the amount which council intends to raise by general rates, and the waste management charges described later in this resolution, which amount is calculated as follows. Now, I have read approximately 1/3 of that recommendation, and I hope that you're getting the gist of it, and that you might, if you'd like to continue to read the rest of that recommendation according to the agenda. I'm not going to read any more of it. I'm going to ask that someone will move the motion. If somebody would like to move the adoption of Indigo Shire Council 2024-25 budget. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd, and seconded by Councillor Tyson. Councillor Shepherd.
So we've already endorsed this budget on the 14th of May, and it's really been out for community viewing, and we've discussed that we've had 8 submissions. Some notable features are rate increases of 2.75%. We've budgeted to deliver capital works program of 18.302 million for 24-25, being 6.713 million in new projects and 11.589 million in projects already funded. No reduction in services, no new borrowings in 24-25. Now, probably what we should raise at this time is the fact that since the publication of the draft budget, we've got some updated information, and grant announcements have changed a few of the projects and funding levels. And the notable changes from the draft budget are that the confirmation of Burman East Bridge Road replacement subject to funding text removed, confirmation that the following grant applications have been unsuccessful, hence each now removed from the budget. So the Yaks Scout Hall heating upgrade, Rutherglen Vic heating upgrade, Beechworth mountain bike shelter, and Barnawatha Rec Reserve floodlights. And if you, like me, thought, what are we going to do with all that money then? Maybe we can spend some more money on roads. No, most of that money was expected to be in grant funding, and there was only a small portion of that was going to be coming directly from us in the budget. So alas, that doesn't mean we've got more money. Additional roads to recovery funding was announced, and income, from this source increased by 321,000. And corresponding increase in road expenditure is being nominally split 3 ways between rural road drainage, sealed pavement rehabilitation, and sealed roads major patching. So everyone's got their fair share of that $321,000. So I thank you to our staff for all the work that they've done. Thank you for the community and your feedback. And it's always hard, a budget, but I think we've had a lot of time and energy to put into this as councillors, and we've been able to ask any questions we want along the whole process, and we've looked at this forensically, and I'm happy to endorse it.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Thank you, councillor Shepherd, for your remarks. Our budget's been through a very comprehensive process. It's been through all of our hands. It's been through the community, and it's been back out to the community, and now it's back with us. As councillors, unanimously we passed it in May, and I for one will be passing it again. It's a very diverse budget covering many areas. I don't think many people appreciate how many areas local government play in. I mean, what services we have, and we don't get a lot to do quite a lot with. So thank you.
Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
I'm very pleased to say that Indigo Shire rates are low compared to most other Victorian councils. Our biggest business in the Shire is agriculture. We have a differential rating policy. That policy is general rates 100%. Residential vacant is 200%. Almost all vacant residential land is in the hands of developers. The rural 1 is 75% of the general rate, and rural 2 is 90% of the general rate, and industrial commercial is 135%. That has been the policy of this council for many, many years. It's been copied by a lot of other, even local councils, and I think it serves the people of Indigo Shire very well.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, setting the annual budget is certainly one of the most important areas of that the council embark upon. The idea of balancing the needs of different services, areas, and making decisions on funding allocations is indeed very tricky. I feel the staff have delivered a well-balanced budget and have followed a definite process which allows us to endorse the recommendation, and I'd like to thank them for the extensive work in formulating this document.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Horn.
I'm patently aware that I look at things rather differently from my fellow councillors. I look for balance. I look for balance across our different sectors. I look for balance amongst our demographics of our community. And I also look for balance amongst the things that the community are asking for and what they actually receive. With the different sectors, agriculture is actually our largest sector, and I'm often disappointed that tourism offerings seem to override other offerings that could improve the life of people in agriculture, which is very, very important, not only to our country, but to the whole world as we live in the food bowl. And as far as demographic goes, I get very disappointed when I see mothers with their prams and kiddies walking in the street because there are no footpaths. I get particularly disturbed when I see elderly people having to walk in the street because there's no footpath for them to come out on their mobility devices. And I think also that we have two lists. We have one list of what we need and one list of what we want. And I'm very often disappointed with us getting those two lists mixed up. Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold.
Thank you. I think the budget document is an extraordinary piece of work, and thank you to the council officers for leading it and taking us through it. I think also the community that have gone through it with a fine-tooth comb and made sense of it and asked their questions and provided their feedback. I know we can't generate enough funds through rates to do everything that we would, and I think both want and need. And I think one of our saving graces is the skills of our council officers and their ability to successfully acquire grants. And it's through that funding that we achieve so much more than purely rating or expecting that we can increase rates ad infinitum. And the infamous mobile phone goes. So I think it's really important to consider that this is, the best we can do with what we've got to balance many needs and in many ways not get everything right, but a very good attempt at doing so. And I do hope that council continue through our offices to apply for grants, and I wish them continued success because that makes a huge difference to what we see happening on the ground. And I think as evidenced by the achievement over the last 3 years, much would not have occurred had we not received grant funding, and the skill set to do that is not simple.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. I suppose I'd like to comment on the process to the community to reflect that I'm really confident that every councillor in this room has been afforded every opportunity to contribute to this budget. This is our budget, and that has been pointed out to us time and time again as we've put it together. And so any suggestion at this late stage that you haven't been able to shape it to what it should look like to reflect what you need, I think is a pot shot, quite frankly, at this stage. I think that it's very easy to be able to point out what a small rural shire can't do, and that's everything. We can never achieve everything, and I think that it's more reasonable to be able to reflect back to our community that we are doing as much as we can with what we have, and that means managing a very delicate balance of our wants and needs, because although we might be able to hear very clearly from the community that they want us to reflect very basic infrastructure and continue to prioritise that in a big way, and we also have to balance that with the fact that the grant opportunities that are on offer sometimes don't reflect those basic infrastructure needs, and we need to be seen to be aspiring and striving, as well as continuing to see the importance of upgrading our most basic infrastructure. So I'm very confident that this budget does exactly that, and I'm very proud of this budget and the council staff that have helped with the councillors to bring it all together. And I think that it is an appropriate reflection of what our community wants. And I would continue to tell our community to keep asking for more, because that's what we keep reflecting to the organisation as well. So I look forward to adopting this budget tonight. I'll go back to you, Councillor Shepherd, as the mover, if you would like to sum up.
I've heard a number of councillors speak about balance, and I think that's the most difficult thing to be doing in this budget, and what we're always striving to do is to balance this the money that we're getting in, including the grants. Good point, and how much money is going out, and that's the question we're constantly asking as councillors, and so. I think we've done a good job here, and I thank the staff and the CEO for their guidance.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. So I now put it to the vote. We're voting on the adoption of the Indigo Shire Council 2024-25 budget. All those in favour? And those against? So those in favour again is Councillor Gold, Shepherd, Price, Gaffney, Tysell, Croucher, and those against is Councillor Horn. The motion is carried.
Okay, Madam Mayor, for the sake of somebody that's in the gallery, I was wondering whether we could make the next item 11.6, 106 Cornish Town.
So you're asking, Councillor Gaffney, that we bring forward item 11.6, the planning permit application for 106 Cornish Town Road, Rutherglen. So the CEO would need a resolution. So Councillor Gaffney, you would move that, and Councillor Tysell would second. Is that the case?
Correct.
Okay, so councillors are all understanding of what we're asking for. I'll put it to the vote that that item be brought forward to the next item on the agenda. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So I'll give councillors a moment just to get to item 11.6. Item 11.6 is planning permit application PP 230205 for 106 Cornish Town Road, Rutherglen. The item is for decision. Councillor Tyson.
I'd like to move an alternate motion, please, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
The alternate motion is that council grant a permit for 106 Cornish Town Road, Rutherglen, allowing for the re-subdivision of the land into 2 lots in the farming zone and environmental significance overlay Schedule 3, subject to the following conditions, which I'll table.
Okay, and so a summary of those conditions, Councillor Tyson, each councillor has got a copy of this alternate motion. Some of the titles are endorsed plans, subdivision, crossings, Section 173 agreement, mandatory subdivision conditions, mandatory conditions for telecommunications. There's a comment about a statement of compliance and permit expiry for subdivision. So there's quite a few conditions there, and that's what you'd like to move, Councillor Tyson?
That is correct.
Okay, can we have it?
Can I foreshadow if this lapses that we
Return.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Councillor Shepherd, you're foreshadowing that if this motion lapses, we return to the recommendation in the agenda. So we have a mover for Councillor Tyson's motion. Can we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, currently there are four plots of land for this. This will consolidate that to 2. This is a farmhouse that we're talking about here on a farming property that is going to be put into a smaller allotment and allow for the large-scale farming to occur on the rest of the property. It's a little bit different to what we would normally get, where people are consolidating land to try and put houses on. This is actually consolidating land to try and get rid of it and keep most of the property intact. The applicant does not want to be burdened with rentals and or trying to renovate the house. And as such, I feel that is legitimately trying to do the best for their property. And I would like councillors to vote for this and allow that to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gaffney, would you like to speak?
Reserve the right.
You reserve your right to speak.
Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold.
Thank you. I think this falls into a really vexing issue that we are faced with quite frequently, that the legislation as it stands, our Planning Act, the advice we are given, contradicts often what people who own farmland want to actually achieve. And we hear people's personal uses and personal ambitions for their land, and we are still having to operate within planning schemes and various overlays. I think the applicant's ambition to subdivide, have a 20-acre lot approximately with a house on it and be able to sell that land is commendable in protecting the other 80-odd hectares of that land as primary production. It does, in one hand, perhaps make better use of that land from the applicant's point of view. It does, however, create 2 lots, one which already has a house and a second lot which would have an as of right opportunity to form another dwelling. It does contradict the planning intent, which is to not create smaller lots and not create smaller parcels of land within our large farm zones, and rather have houses built closer to towns and leave land more readily available for agriculture. I think it's been raised quite a few times, and I know our current land use strategy and the work that's being done to look at the land availability, the land uses, and how we might best use land for different purposes in the future is really timely. It doesn't help us today, but I am really pleased to know that we're putting some thought into how we might address, in particular, the use of our farm zone in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
I agree. It makes sense what the applicant is asking for, And yet, when we look at how we have said we're going to support farming zone to stay in agriculture, by subdividing off smaller blocks in that area creates a residential space, really, because what could happen, and we can't put anything over anything that was going to stop that other block that is going to be built hoved off, that could also be built on. So we would then have two houses in the farming zone next to each other. Now, we've said we are going to support agriculture, and we're not supporting residential growth in farming areas. So even though I get it, I understand what the applicant's wanting to do, it just does not go within what we've said we're going to do. So I can't support it.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I would like to echo some of the comments that Councillor Shepherd and Councillor Gold have made. I think that it's really hard to say that we support farming and maintaining agricultural land for agricultural use when each time you come up against an individual circumstance that you can resonate with. You understand these people's commitment to farming and to the area, and nonetheless they can describe some reasons that they would like to in this instance subdivide off this piece of land. Those reasons can make really good sense and still not be in alignment with one of our values, which is to keep farming land for agriculture. And for that reason, I won't be voting for the alternate motion. I'll now go to Councillor Gaffney.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, you're talking against the motion. You're the mayor. I know that you can make comments, but I don't think you can write out make your position known before we go for a vote, and I'd like the governance rules to be checked on that behalf.
So, Councillor Gaffney, I can absolutely maintain an open mind as well as reflect a position in a debate. That's something that I've done consistently, not just today.
An open mind when you just told us which way you're going to vote.
It can be an intention of how to vote.
That's a closed mind. You've made that decision.
So what would you like us to check in the governance rules, Councillor Gaffney?
Whether the mayor can make comments and speak to or against the motion, and then tell the other councillors which way she's going to vote when the debate hasn't even finished.
So we'll go to the governance officer. We can talk about mayor's participation in a debate. I think that's probably what we need to look at.
So under Rule 58 in the governance rules, under point C, that any other councillor, including the chairperson, may speak to the motion for a period not exceeding 3 minutes. That is, if a motion is amended or moved and seconded.
Thank you. Now I'll return to Councillor Gaffney as the seconder, if you would like to speak to the motion.
Your comments won't influence my vote, Madam Mayor, but I agree with Councillor Shepherd 100%. This application does make sense. Here we have an allotment of 108.3 hectares. Consolidating 4 lots into 2 makes a lot of sense. It's cropping land and has been cropped by the applicant for 15 years and he's owned the property for the last 15 years. It's broadacre wheat, oats and legumes. It's all about making bigger lots for council, for farming and for cropping. The conditions attached to this amendment are arduous, but I'm sure they can be overcome.
Councillor Tyson, would you like to sum up?
Some very good arguments made. One thing I would like to say about the value of farming land and the state government saying that it needs to be 100 acres or more. As I drive down the freeway, I watch the ever-growing expansion of solar panels on our prime farming land that seems to not have that same rule put on them. It does not reflect the sentiment that we're talking about here. This is a family that has farmed in this area for a long period of time that simply wants to offload an asset so that they can better fulfil their farming practices.
Thank you, councillor Tysell. So I'm about to put it to the vote. We are voting on the alternate motion, which is a motion for approval. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of approving this motion? And those against? So those for the motion is councillor Horn, Croucher, Tysell, Gaffney, and those against is councillor Price, Shepherd, Gold. The motion is carried. Councillors, will now return to item 11.4, the May Finance Report for 2024. The item is for decision, and the recommendation is that Council accepts the year-to-date May Finance Report, noting the progress against Council's Q2 forecast. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Croucher, seconded councillor Tysell. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, look, despite the financial position being unfavourable to the Q2 forecast, the addition of usual grant funding to arrive later this month, as well as receipt of grant funds and natural disaster reimbursement things will certainly improve.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Councillor Tysell, would you like to speak as seconder?
I'd just like to talk about some of the grants that have come through and how they're going to benefit the communities later in the year. Two that I'd like to note here are strategic planning for bushfire funding, which is very important to this area, and $15,000 for environmental health services into our mosquito monitoring, especially around the Rutherglen area. So that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Tysell. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to councillor Croucher. Would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.5 is the planning permit application PP 220231 for 20 Lake Road, Norong. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that a notice of decision.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move a motion to this.
Councillor Gaffney.
The motion is that this item be deferred to the July council meeting regarding the environmental overlay.
So is that for more information to the July council meeting to do with an environmental overlay? So we have a deferral motion moved by councillor Gaffney. Can I have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by councillor Tysell. There's no debate on a deferral motion, so I'll put it straight to the vote. The vote is for deferring the item until the July council meeting. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We've already dealt with item 11.6, so we'll now go to item 11.7, the planning permit application PP 240012 for 105 Fraser Road, Browns Plains. The item is for decision, and the recommendation is that a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for use and development for group accommodation, which is 6 transportable cabins at 105 Fraser Road, Browns Plains, be issued subject to the following conditions. There are 8 sets of conditions, and the titles for those are various things, and they are approved development, linked to winery operations, engineering conditions, sediment control and soil and water management, on-site effluent disposal, water supply, external fabric, advisory signage and expiry development. And they go for almost 3 pages, so I don't intend to read them all. Could I have somebody to move that motion, please? Moved by councillor Shepherd, seconded by councillor Horn. Councillor Shepherd.
So the proposal is an acceptable land use outcome, given the site circumstances. Having regard to the decision guidelines of the farming zone, there are no significant issues raised. Appropriate plans have been provided in support of the application. There are no nearby agricultural land uses that will be adversely impacted. The application has been supported by a preliminary land capability assessment, indicating that the site is capable of containing and treating effluent on site. In summary, there are no issues under the farming zone which would otherwise preclude an approval.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Councillor Horn, would you like to speak as seconder? You'll reserve your right. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher.
Yes, I'd just like to take a few notes out of the conclusion. I think this sums it up best for me as far as I'm concerned. This proposal supports primary production by assisting with the issue of workers' accommodation. It links this accommodation to the farming business, and of course, the planning scheme is all out to support for farmers. It's one of their major goals.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll go back to councillor Horn as seconder. You reserved your right.
Yes, I think that this is in the spirit of the endeavours of everybody to reserve farming land and also support our tourism industry. So it's welcome.
Thank you, councillor Horn. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up? No. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.8 is planning permit application PB 220293.1 for 80 Michelle Drive, Kiwa. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that a notice of decision to amend planning permit PP 220293.1 at 80 Michelle Drive, Kiwa, with new amended plans be issued subject to the following conditions. Similarly to some of the past applications that we've been dealing with tonight, there are 2 pages of conditions, and some of those titles are approved development, external fabric, landscaping, sediment control and soil and water management, protection of waterways, drainage, internal road, driveway, septic and expiry date. I don't intend to read all of those, so I will ask councillors for a mover. Moved councillor Shepherd, seconded councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, so the sole reason this planning permit application is before council for decision is because of the cost of the proposed development. The applicant has estimated that proposed buildings and works will cost approximately $2.2 million, and council officers are not delegated to decide on buildings and works of more than $2 million. So basically, this is a planning permit that's being amended. No other triggers have been, there's no more triggers to the planning of planning concerns. It's we do have submissions against that the changing of the plans, but really they are dealt with in response to the objections, and some of them aren't planning issues. So I'm happy to support that this is really just a change in the size of the building.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder?
Thank you. I think, again, this is really about the size of a dwelling to be built rather than significant change to the initial application, which was supported. I think there were a couple of concerns raised. They've been addressed, and as councillor Shepherd mentioned, there are no other triggers for this to come to council.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
After I've read this, I just say that the application and the house is fit for purpose.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12 is community and economic development, and item 12.1 is the draft diversity, equity and inclusion policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is 1, that council endorses the draft diversity, equity and inclusion policy for public exhibition for a period of 30 days from the 26th of June to the 25th of July 2024. 2, if no submissions are received during the public exhibition period, the policy is adopted from the 26th of July 2024. And 3, if submissions are received during public exhibition, the policy is to be brought to a future council meeting for adoption. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Gold, seconded councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. I think there's been a lot of conversation both in community and media and certainly within these walls with council around the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion, and it's often laboured as words, and we don't always see great action to go with it. I think this policy is a fabulous start for how council can implement the meaning of diversity, equity and inclusion and find some really real ways where those words can be put into action for the benefit of all. So I'm very pleased to see this policy come to the community and that opportunity for comment and feedback.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
I'm very proud to see this come through council, really. We don't need to do this. It's not mandated that we write this policy, but the fact that we are committed to developing resilient and inclusive communities where our people feel safe, valued and connected, both physically and socially, and we're willing to do that in a policy, and we're going to do training around it, I think it's a really commendable thing to be doing, and I think it's great. I'd like to thank the staff that have put the work into this. It's a really great policy, and it really is giving people basic human rights for inclusion, equity, intersectionality, and we'd like to also say that we're showing leadership in doing this. And I note that a number of people were asked for their opinion of this document, and they were saying how proud they were to be able to give feedback and how pleased they were to see council taking this initiative. So congratulations, I think, for the staff and for the council for moving ahead on this policy. And I look forward to feedback on it.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll go back to you, councillor Gold. Would you like to sum up? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.2 is the Rutherglen Silo Art Precinct RPPP Stream 2 application. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council endorse a grant application to construct the Rutherglen Silo Arts Precinct with the Regional Precincts and Partnerships Program Stream 2 Delivery Fund for $14.5 million. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Croucher, seconded councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher.
The Rutherglen Silo Art Precinct, shovel ready and has great support from the community. This is a fantastic opportunity to gain significant funding. Short and sweet, but there you are.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
One of the words used here is transformative in terms of the grant. And if we would successfully get this opportunity, Rutherglen would be transformed. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold.
Thank you. I think this is again just another example where there's a significant project sought by the Rutherglen community and beyond. It's great for the community. It'll be a wonderful destination and economic and social benefits. I think this is a really good example again where council can apply for significant funding and though we have to pay the council officers for their time to prepare the application, if successful, this would be a significant income for council to deliver a project of great value.
Thank you, councillor Gold. I'd agree. I think this is a great example of balancing our wants and needs. And this is certainly not a need, but if these councillors in this room aren't very clear that it is a want from this community, it's something that they've described to us. We haven't described to them. And lots of different people from the Rutherglen community have come forward to us and described exactly how this precinct could work. And I'm proud to say that we've reflected it in terms of what this project looks like, and we will continue to seek funding for it because it is something that the community has asked us for. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Horn.
I'd just like to add that it is actually an innovative approach of combining lots of different aspects of the town and encouraging community to get together in a very happy and pleasant environment.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Councillor Crouch, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.3 is Community Development Grants, Guidelines and Assessment Criteria Annual Review. The item is for decision and the recommendation is that
Excuse
council...
me, Mayor, I'd like to make an amendment to this.
Yep, what's your amendment, Councillor Horn? So you'll be moving, it won't be an amendment, you will be moving a motion.
A
within-
motion,
Mhm.
yes, right. Well, I wish to amend 1B, events grants, and 1C, get active grants, in regard to the assessment criteria and makeup of the panels to include community members.
Okay, Councillor Horn, that is not at all clear to me what you would like to do. So I'm asking, you are moving a motion. There is no motion currently. You'd like to change B and C, but I have no idea what change you would like to make. So you need to describe that.
Well, I think this is in my argument though.
Well, I don't need your argument. I need your motion.
I want to amend both of those grants to include community members to make up the assessment panels.
So I really shouldn't have to help you this much with the motion, but I'm going to. You'd like to move a motion that includes the recommendation as it stands, but makes a change to include community representation on the panels for the event grants and the Get Active Indigo grants.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, so we have a mover for that motion. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Croucher, you'd like to second it? And can I just confirm as well, a part of that motion that we need to nominate 2 councillor representatives for the Community Events Grants Assessment Panel. Do I have 2 councillors that would like to put their hand up for that? Councillor Croucher and Councillor Gaffney, you would both like to. So to be clear for each councillor, the motion that we have in front of us is the recommendation, including the nomination of 2 councillors, Councillor Gaffney and Councillor Croucher. The addition to the recommendation is that the events grants and the Get Active Indigo grants panels now have community representation included in them. Councillor Horn, would you like to speak to your motion?
There are many valuable lessons to be learnt from our Community Grants and Awards Advisory Committee, which has been operating with an assessment panel made up of community members from across the Shire since its inception in 2010. I believe all grant committees should align with this practice of including community members on assessment panels in order to demonstrate consistent governance arrangements for the application, acquittal and management of grants as outlined in the guidelines. To this end, I would like to see a minimum of 3 community members or bank, as in Bendigo Bank or WAW representatives, added to the existing mix of council staff and semi-government agencies appointed to both the events grants and the Get Active Indigo grants committees. In this way, the community can maintain confidence in the fairness, transparency and accountability of council processes.
Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, I'd like to look at the panel of the Get Active grant. The panel is a councillor and a council manager non-voting, And the other reps are health promotion representatives from Indigo North Health, Beechworth Health Services, and a representative from Regional Sports. So there's only 3 actual community reps on there, and they're not from our sort of community. I just think it would be handy if we did have a couple of community reps on that particular panel. And I think the same with the events one. It's got Murray Arts, it's got Beechworth Health, Indigo North Health, Yakandanda Health, and Sports Northeast. I just think it would be really good to have a couple of community members on both of those panels.
Thank you, councillor Crouch. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Shepherd.
So when you look at these recommendations, they have not come from out of the blue. We've been discussing these. We've had input on the governance, on the guidelines and assessment criteria. We've had, for the last year, really, we've been discussing the makeup of these particular committees. We've had many opportunities to discuss whether we add community members to it, and we haven't added community members to it. Now, I'm open to have the discussion again, but I don't want to be railroaded at a council meeting around it. Like, if you want to talk about community members, because we've had a huge discussion on why we think these makeups work around each of these particular grant assessment groups. And we've been happy with it to date. And this is so out of the blue that now that we add community members to 2 of them when we've never, in all the times we've discussed these committees, we have not said that. So, I mean, I'm happy for the discussion, but I just don't think in the middle of us agreeing on the guidelines for the new grants that we change the committees. That's not what this is about. This recommendation is about approving. Like, I just think it's out of the blue, trying to change something at a council meeting when we've really got plenty of opportunities to discuss what that makeup has, and we've had that opportunity. So I'm unsure why now? Why not back when we were discussing it?
I think it's really, is that a question to councillor Horn, or that's all comment?
It's a question to councillor Horn, yes, because like I've been in many meetings where we've discussed this, and councillor Horn's had the opportunity to raise it.
Councillor Horn.
I have in fact raised this matter before, and I was told that this was the appropriate time of the year to do that. And also it states in these papers about having consistent governance, so aligning with the very successful committee that we've had for so many years seems to make great sense to me.
So I'd like to make comment on this as well. I think that it's it can be really interesting to consider something like this on the night, on the fly, and it can absolutely sound like a good idea. But I think we forget where we started with these grant panels, and where we started with having really robust governance of these grant panels was way back when one of the councils, Yarriambiack, someone, got absolutely scolded by the inspectorate for their administration of grants, and it demonstrated a real exposure to all councils for the way that we were all quite flippantly designing our grants panels and administering grants and really exposing ourselves to lots of conflicts of interest and different things like that. And since then, the inspectorate has given really clear guidance as to exactly how we can best administer the public's money and how we can deliver really good grant programs that can really have the confidence of our community. And I've been really pleased since then to see our staff come and reflect that back to us and demonstrate the really robust processes that we have in place. I think we can get really casual about that a few years down the track and think that we've really got great grant programs, and so we'll just tinker here and there and start to make changes. But that is exactly the opposite of the point that the inspectorate was making. It's not to be tinkered with. There is a very good process that's described. We ask our staff to make sure that these panels are representative of community, and I just think it's a furphy to suggest that there aren't community on these panels. And I think that if there was a suggestion of how to incorporate community members, it's not to be made tonight. It's to be made through the lens of how we can continue to make really good decisions through these grant panels. And until there's a demonstration of what that can be, I don't know whether it's a bank or a random group or something, like that's not a good outline of that at all. So until then, I'm going to very confidently stick with the processes that we've had in place as informed by reports from somewhere like the Inspectorate. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson.
We're talking about community members being on the panels. Why are we talking about Bendigo Bank and WAW having input into it? Those employees may not even work within our communities. Why are they significant to this?
We do actually have both of those banking organisations in our community, and they're community-based organisations. And I think it shows transparency if we have someone with financial experience as well as community members.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gold.
Thank you. I think we have 3 grants, processes, policies under consideration here. The grants panel for each represents or has representatives from council through councillors and through council officers. They're also made up of mix of 3, 4, 5 representatives of organisations with an expertise associated with the grant round under discussion. I think it's really important that our grant selection committee have expertise in association with the grant that's being applied for to be able to really understand the sector and the implications of that. I think, though, when we talk about organisations like our local health services, or if it's tourism, or if it's Murray Arts, or it's our health providers, they are local. So it would be very easy for those organisations to put forward an expert in the sector, aligned with the grants that are being considered, of somebody who is very well connected with our community. And I think that brings a really nice synergy then between having community representatives on each of our grant panels who are also people with expertise specific to the grant being considered.
So would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
I'm a bit surprised that Councillor Shepherd says that this has come out of the blue, and she said it twice. Where there's an item on the council agenda for a council meeting, isn't that the right place to debate it? Being open and transparent with our community, particularly when we're talking about community members.
Are you asking a question?
Excuse me?
Did you want an answer?
No. It just surprises me why you don't want to be open and transparent and discuss this at council.
I thought you asked me a question of why I said that.
Well, I'm sure, well, you can't sum up, can you? Do we know, we're told also that these people are from Indigo Shire Council. So are we saying that Sports Northeast has got somebody from Indigo Shire Council representing them on these committees? Do we know whether Tourism Northeast comes from communities in Indigo Shire? Like, they cover a huge area. And was it Murray Arts? I'm not sure. Beechworth Health, I'm not sure whether they're from Indigo Shire. With the other ones, there's the Regional Sports, Assembly Sports Northeast, never heard of them. So are they independent? Are they just talking about being active? Do you have to be a member of a sports club or a sports assembly? I just think that when you have committees that are deciding on what happens in Indigo Shire, that they should be Indigo Shire people and personnel. And to bring up Yarriambiack, which has got a population of 6,000 compared to Indigo Shire, I think it's 14,000 or 15,000, 17,000. There's certainly a big difference. I think it's important that our community members are trusted to make the right decisions, that they'd be independent. And I think it's very important, as you said, Madam Mayor, that's been brought up on the night on the fly. I'm not sure what that means. It's an agenda item. We're having a meeting here that's open and live streamed so that we can be open and transparent, not making decisions on the night or on the fly.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Councillor Horn, would you like to sum up?
Sorry, can I just preempt, foreshadow if this fails, that the previous motion be still standing?
Okay, so councillor Shepherd, you're foreshadowing that if this motion lapses, we return to the recommendation as it is in the agenda papers. Councillor Horn, would you like to sum up?
Transparency and faith.
Sorry, councillor Horn, can I just pause right there? The CEO would just like to make a comment, and I just think it's appropriate that that happens before we sum up.
Very conscious of not entering the debate. Councillor Gaffney, I can see you glancing at me. I just wanted to make a comment about process, not about the merits of the suggestion otherwise. There were some grants that we sought to be determined before caretaker, before this council, and some that we could hold over till the next council. So I know that some of these have processes that are designed to be publicised, and then grant applications received and then processed and approved by council prior to this council going into caretaker, and then allow those grants then to be used against events funds that go throughout the spring summer period. I'm just flagging that if we have an additional requirement to then go out and recruit community members, that we will then push processes back some months while we seek those community members, and if council appoint those community members in time, then it won't get back in time then to be then go out and seek applications to then satisfy these grants before usually the spring and summer season when a lot of these events grants are held. So I just wonder whether such an amendment be made to the next year's process rather than this one, so we allow this year's process to unfold as it normally would and get those grants then out into the community before caretaker period. So it's a comment about process, not about the merits of the suggestion.
Thank you, CEO.
I'd like to ask a question to the CEO about his
Yep.
comment. So are you saying to me that you couldn't get community members to be on the Get Active community grant and the events grant? You couldn't do it for months? Surely you could do it within 21 days when most of the decisions tonight have been that have gone out for community consultation, they're to be back in 21 days. If you wanted community members to go on this committee, I've got no doubt that you could do it in 3 weeks, not 3 or 4 months.
So what I'm saying is you go out and advertise for community members, you then come back and assess those, and then you come to a council meeting to appoint them to those community members, and then once they're appointed, then they receive applications, assess those applications, and then bring back to a future council meeting. That does take time.
Thank you, CEO. I'll go back to you, councillor Horn, as the mover, if you'd like to sum up.
Oh, goodness me. I think we just need to align with our transparency policy. And I think we need to be able to demonstrate that we can pass the pub test when we discuss these decisions.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to put it to the vote, and what we're voting on is a motion put by councillor Horn that is inclusive of the recommendation as it is in the agenda papers, with the addition that community members be added to the panels for the events grants and the Get Active Indigo grants. I'll put it. I can't confirm that because that's different to what was described in the councillor's motion. So I can only describe to you what the motion was, which is what I've just said there. And That's all I can say. So
So the motion I've written down is
Point of order,
B,
yes, the motion. I'd like it read.
but B and C was to include community members. With no discussion about.
okay, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? And against? So those in favour are councillor Horn, Croucher, Tysell, Gaffney, and those against are Price, Shepherd, Gold. The motion is carried. Item 6 is infrastructure services and item 13.1 is community sustainability grant program guidelines annual review for 2024-25. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council 1 adopts the guidelines for the community sustainability grants program for 2024-25 attached, and 2 delegates to the chief executive officer to appoint 2 representatives from the Indigo Environment Advisory Committee to be on the Community Sustainability Grants Program Assessment Panel. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Tysell, seconded councillor Gold. Councillor Tysell, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, the Environment Advisory Committee is a valuable tool to the Shire. The representatives in this will bring their knowledge and interest into the committee, and I'm sure that the decisions they make will align with the community.
Thank you, councillor Tysell. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, for me, this was relatively straightforward in the sense that we've got, again, a good community sustainability grants program outlined, that we've got responsibilities now to include 2 Indigo Environment Advisory Committee members into the grants program assessment panel. Again, people with the appropriate expertise who are by default also members of our community.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll go back to councillor Tysell. Would you like to sum up?
Only that this is another opportunity for our community to put some of our council money into some of the programs which align to our climate emergencies. Thank you.
I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.2 is the climate change policy review. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that 1, that council endorses the draft climate change policy 2024 for the public exhibition for a period of 21 days from the 26th of June to the 16th of July 2024. And 2, the policy is to be brought to a future council meeting for adoption. Can I have somebody to move that, please? Moved councillor Shepherd, seconded councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion?
So it was pretty amazing to be part of the 2019 council that declared a climate emergency, and we committed to a net zero by 2035 target, and we were seen as being one of the first regional councils to declare a climate emergency. And the policy that we wrote then was quite aspirational, really. But since then, there are lots of things that we've put into place. We've been tracking greenhouse gas emissions since 2019 using the Trellis carbon accounting platform. In 2019-20, council produced 6,300 tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions, including scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions. And a major step towards achieving net zero was joining the Victorian Electricity Collaboration, which was came from the Gold Murray Climate Alliance, working together to get that VECO decision, I suppose, or plan that we said we would be part of. So again, I'm really happy to have been part of that council that decided to do 100% sustainable renewable electricity through that program. Since then, we've also been using our climate action platform, Causal, which is an exciting platform. It's embedded in our website, and it has all of the climate actions, including the grants that we give out for sustainability grants, and what's been achieved, what we've achieved as a council. So things have changed, and this climate change policy really reflects our maturity, I suppose, in this space. We're now moving forward with, we're quite confident that we're doing the right thing, and we're sending it out to the community to give us feedback and tell us whether this needs to, anything else needs to be added to this policy. We also looking for the Environment Advisory Committee to give us some sort of formal feedback on this, because they were very much part of that first climate policy. So we'd really appreciate their feedback and the community's feedback. But congratulations, I think, to our council on now reaching a more mature level in this policy.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder?
Thank you. I think the leadership that Indigo Shire Council has shown in this space is extraordinary. We certainly hear a lot about it around this region and beyond. I think it is fabulous that from, those early days, council's intent to mitigate and adapt to climate change, to preempt the negative impacts that is already having in our region and certainly within our community is really critical. And that by, I think, the maturity of council and the learnings and our ability to communicate what is being done to continue to mitigate and adapt and both lead and advocate for climate action is still really important. And having a policy that guides that and can be very practically implemented into the steps that we can show visibly make a difference, I think is critical. And I commend the council officers for putting together a policy that's really meaningful.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. I just make comment that as Mayor, it's one of the things that we get to proudly go out and say to talk about is our the declaration that we made for a climate emergency. And I think that felt like a really bold step at the time, but I think really more and more it has just turned out to reflect the appetite of our community. And I think we are very well regarded in that space for being leaders in that space. And I'm really pleased to see the maturity level reflected in this policy review. And I think that, as I say, it's exactly what our community expects, and we reflect that back with continuing to show really strong leadership. And I think it's something that we can be really proud of. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up?
Just to, again, thank the staff. It's the Sustainability Department is a very small department with 2.5 people. Or is it more than 2.5? It started off, it's 3 now. Wow. Okay. So I remember when we first did the first policy, it was just 1.5 perhaps. So that shows you the significance within Indigo Shire Council. We've grown that department. But this policy did once belong just to that department. It now is a policy that is owned by the whole of council. And I think that's shows the maturity of our council, that we're now not leaving that to one department. This now is something that goes across every decision we make. So it's a very important policy.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.3 is the May Capital Works Report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council notes the May Capital Works Report and year-to-date progress in the delivery of the Capital Works program. Could I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Croucher, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, despite being a little bit slower than forecast, just over 80% of the program has been delivered to date. The usual problems of procurement challenges and delays in obtaining statutory approvals have caused many concerns. However, those projects that have been completed have reached many different parts of the Shire and have been gratefully received. And I can tell you some of those have come over to Tangambalanga and they have been really gratefully received.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, myself and several councillors were fortunate enough last week to get around many of our unsealed roads. It was good to see the condition of them was good coming into the winter, and our council staff and contractors should be commended on their condition.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go, councillor Gaffney.
I'd just like to say that the infrastructure department has worked in a difficult climate with rising costs, the rising goods, trying to get contractors, and I think they've done a very good job.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to councillor Croucher. Would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.4 is contract 21/5560, cleaning of council buildings, public toilets and amenities, extension of contract. The item is for decision. The recommendation.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make an amendment to make the motion.
So you are moving a motion with the inclusion of something else. So can I assume that?
Item 1.
So you're moving a motion that is the recommendation as printed in the agenda papers with the inclusion of one other item. And did you want to tell us what that is, councillor Gaffney?
The item stands alone as an item, but add to it, request the CEO to include the cleaning of public toilets near the Chiltern Bowls Club, and bring it back to another council meeting, whether that would add to the cost, and if so, by how much?
So is it an investigation? Are you asking the CEO to investigate the
Request
cost
to
of?
investigate.
Yep. So it's requesting the CEO to investigate the cost of cleaning the public toilets at the Chiltern Bowls Club and whether that can be included in the current contract?
Correct.
Okay. And that will be brought back to a future council meeting or at the CEO's delegation, is that?
Would that be brought back to the July meeting, CEO?
Almost certain. I think we didn't take long to make an inquiry.
Thank you.
Okay, so the substantive part of the recommendation is that Council 1 approves the option to extend contract 21/5560, cleaning of Shire offices, buildings, public toilets and amenities with border cleaning services for a further 2 years from the 1st of July 2024, and 2 notes that the total contract value over the 2 additional years is estimated at approximately $630,000 excluding GST. So the motion is all of that recommendation plus the third item, which is request the CEO to investigate the cost of cleaning of the public toilets at the Chiltern Bowls Club and whether they can be included in the contract. So, councillor Gaffney, you're moving that motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
And councillor Tyson, you'd like to second. Councillor Gaffney, would you like to speak to the motion?
It's a large contract, 630,000 excluding GST. The cleaning of Shire offices, buildings, public toilets and amenities is a very difficult job. People can go and clean a toilet, 2 other people go in after them, and it's not in the same state that it should be. I think overall the toilets in Indigo Shire, they're certainly clean. Some need refurbishment, and there's money in the budget for that.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, our public toilets are what our tourists use, what our everyday people use, and it's great to see that they're going to be cleaned and by a local firm.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Would any other councillor like to speak? Director Ellett, do you have a comment to make? So the Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
I do have a comment to make. I've just been communicated to by someone watching from home saying that we've actually recently added that. So we've already sought a variation to that contract, and as of now, that public toilet should be being cleaned under that contract.
I know people say that I move quickly, but not usually that.
Well, there you go. So can I suggest to the mover that the mover might like to go back to the recommendation?
I would, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to move the recommendation as it is in the agenda.
And can I confirm that the seconder is also happy with that? Okay, so thank you very much for that, Director Ellett. So the mover has spoken, the seconder has spoken. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'd just like to say what an important contract this is. I think we really heard loud and clear from our communities, particularly during COVID and now post-COVID, just how important this contract is and how it can be a really big reputational item for our communities and for our towns when we put them on show. And I think that it's really pleasing to see that the infrastructure department has reflected back the inclusion of that particular public toilet in that contract, because I think we have heard loud and clear from that community that they expect to be included in the contract and hope to be included, and they've been making lots of noise to all of our staff, and as they should have, it's been appropriately included. So the right thing has happened. I'll now go back to Councillor Gaffney. Would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13.5 is contract number 2122054008 Rutherglen Loops Distillery Road, Rutherglen. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 awards contract number 2122045008 Rutherglen Loops Distillery Road to XL Grey Brunei for the amount $423,000, $423,535, excluding GST. 2, authorises the CEO to execute the contract documentation, and 3, also authorises the CEO the financial delegation to approve contract variations up to a total of 15% of the signed contract value. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Horn, seconded Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Horn.
This work will make a huge difference to that whole area. There's lots of new housing in that area. There are lots of young families, and this is going to be a wonderful thing for the whole community and our visitors.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Councillor Gaffney, would you like to speak as seconder?
Just checking with the Director Infrastructure, this is a $5.2 million contract, is that correct? Not this contract, the whole loop. 5.133, thank you, CEO, and not $1 of that was to be Indigo Shire money. It's this project was just brought up at not the right time. We went out for public consultation and engagement. I remember Destination Rutherglen made this their #1 priority. Certain groups said we shouldn't be spending it on that. Once you get a grant from the federal government for such a large amount of money that you wouldn't have got to do a footpath in some other street. So council worked hard to get that. Then it was taken office. I know the CEO at one stage spoke to the federal minister face to face and got a very favourable response. So as I said, it's had its difficulties, but it's getting towards the finish line. And at this stage, we've got a variation of 15%, which is good with the current climate. And I'm just pleased to see it happen.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll just echo some of Councillor Gaffney's comments that, again, this is another great example of an enormous grant for a small rural shire that we've been able to aspire for our communities and really help them to dream big with an enormous project. It's not a road, it's not a footpath, it's not curb and guttering, but we have to continue to balance the needs for basic infrastructure with really realising some of the really big dreams of our communities, and this is one of them. Councillor Horn, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 7 is executive management and item 14.1 is the governance rules review. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the revised governance rules, including the election period policy. 2, places it on public exhibition for a period of 14 days from the 26th of June to the 10th of July 2024 and invites submissions. And 3, notes the election period procedure for councillors as attached to this report. Can I have somebody to move that motion? Moved councillor Tyson, seconded councillor Gold. Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, the governance rules review really just tidies up a few areas in terms of how we run and operate as a council, laws and our interactions with some of the staff and some of the procedures that we're governed by.
Thank you, councillor Tyson. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder?
I think, again, just reiterating the importance of the clarity around the governance, and particularly at this time as we approach caretaker mode and election, particularly so the public understand what they can expect, but also people that may be interested in standing for council start to get their head around what is required and timelines and dates and expectations of behaviour.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.2 is the review of the instruments of delegation. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council adopts the following instruments of delegation. I'm going to read the titles. The instruments of delegation council to the CEO, instrument of delegation council to members of council staff, instrument of subdelegation council to members of staff under the Environment Protection Act 2017, and 2 notes that the delegations come into force immediately upon this resolution being made, revokes all previous delegations to the Chief Executive Officer and to members of staff, and notes that the duties and functions set out in the instruments must be performed and the powers set out in the instruments must be executed in accordance with any guidelines or policies of council that it may from time to time adopt. Under each of those 3 delegations that I mentioned, there's an explanation of the following changes to instruments. I don't intend to read those, councillors. You've got them in your agenda papers. Could I get somebody to move that recommendation? Moved councillor Gold, seconded councillor Tyson. Councillor Gold.
I think that having instruments of delegation in place, it's essential for the sound operation of council and the clarity by which the CEO and staff can make decisions and act on our behalf. I think it's really important. I think it's been proven over the years that the delegation has worked well where it's needed to be refined. It has been, and I commend these review of this, the renewal of this policy.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder? No. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Gold, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.3 is advisory committee minutes. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council receives the attached unconfirmed meeting minutes for the following advisory committees. 1, the Indigo Shire Community Grants and Awards Advisory Committee, and 2, the Indigo Community Access Committee. Councillor Crouch, you'd like to move that motion, and Councillor Gaffney would like to second it. Councillor Croucher, would you like to speak?
Not really much, but it's just I'm on both of those committees and they are very, very good confirmed meeting minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Councillor Gaffney.
I'm on the Community Grants Committee. That is all members of the community. They get on really well. I don't think anything went to a vote. It's all reached by consensus and plenty of declarations of conflict of interest, which makes it such a good committee.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Crouch. Would you like to sum up? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.4 is informal meetings of councillor records. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings.
May I just move a motion to include one extra point? in the
For-
appointment of the acting chief executive
Oh,
officer?
sorry, that's the following item. So I'll absolutely take that at the next one. So the recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings of council records. Can I get somebody to move that? Moved councillor Gaffney, seconded councillor Croucher. Would either of you like to speak? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.5 is the appointment of acting chief executive officer. Councillor Gold.
I clearly knew the previous one would be quick. I just wanted to move a motion to include one additional point. So the recommendation as it reads has 4 points, just to add a 5th point. In the event that Sally Rice is otherwise unavailable at any time during her appointed term, that Ian Ellett be appointed as acting chief executive officer during any period of Sally Rice's absence.
Thank you, councillor Gold. I'll read the rest of the recommendation that Council 1 appoints the Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett, as Acting Chief Executive Officer for the period 15 July to 17 July 2024 inclusive. And 2, appoints the Director of Community and Economic Development, Sally Rice, as Acting Chief Executive Officer for the period 18 July to 9 August 2024 inclusive. Then is the 3rd point that councillor Gold referenced. Item 4 is authorises Ian Ellett and Sally Rice to exercise all powers and authorities reposed in the position of the Chief Executive Officer for their respective periods of the appointment as Acting Chief Executive Officer. And 5, notes that should the Chief Executive Officer be unable to undertake the leave within this period or otherwise resumes duties during this period, he will automatically resume all delegations and power. So councillor Gold, you've moved that motion. And can I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gold, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I think of itself, it's fairly straightforward. We've got 2 options for 2 of the senior council officers to gain that the experience of acting in the chief executive officer role, but also bringing their expertise to the role. And we've got a nice backup and contingency if one or the other is not available for any reason.
Thank you, councillor Gold. Councillor Tyson, do you wish to speak to the motion? No, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.6 is contracts awarded under Chief Executive Officer delegation for May 2024. The item is for information and there were no contracts awarded by the CEO under delegation between the values of $250,000 and $500,000 for the month of May 2024. Item 15 is notices of motion and there are none. Item 16 is councillors' reports. Would any councillor like to make a report to the meeting? Item 16.1 is the Mayor's Diary and it is for information. Item 17 is the Decisions Register.
Can I
Councillor
just
Gaffney.
mention one thing, Madam Mayor? The first item there is closed circuit television Indigo Shire. It's in the 24-25 budget. I'll have a look to see what page that's on before the next meeting. I'd just like to say that councillors had every opportunity to have things added or taken out of the budget over a period of at least 3 or 4 months, and it's pleased to see that item became a resolution.
Thank you, councillor Gaffney. So as councillor Gaffney has referenced, the decision register is there for information. I'll now move to item 18, which is general business. Councillor Horn, you've got an item for general business. Councillor Shepherd, you've got an item for general business, or councillor Gold, sorry.
Sorry, not intending to be confusing. We're just really aware that the Barnawatha Post Office has closed, and I was just seeking some updates from council on what council is doing and can continue to do to support that community.
CEO, would you like to answer, or the Director of Community and Economic Development, Sally Rice?
Thanks, and through you, Mayor Price. I've been in contact with representatives of Australia Post a number of times since hearing the news of the sudden closure last Friday of the Barnawatha Post Office. while I haven't got a definitive update to provide, I'm certainly advocating strongly on behalf of the community and will do so repeatedly to try and get some traction and swift action to resolve the issue of the loss of the post office out there. And I'm just making it really clear that it's a small rural township. The travel distance and the commute and even people's ability to get to the alternatives is that's the context we're working in. We're not working in a city environment where public transport and accessibility is less of an issue, and just really trying to paint the picture of this closure being critical to the access of an essential service to the community, and how important it also is as a social hub, and that reopening has a greater impact than the loss of the service of the post office in and of itself. So I'll continue to contact and keep it on the agenda as best I can.
I'd just add to that, Councillor Gold. I received a phone call on Friday from someone within Australia Post outlining the situation as it was, and with the advice from the CEO, I was able to convey to that person that if there's anything that Indigo Shire Council can do to support them to maintain and re-establish the mail and parcel service to Barnawartha, that we would want to provide any assistance that we can. And they were very appreciative of that and going to continue to communicate with us what the short-term solution looks like and what a longer-term solution looks like. And when we were insisting, exactly as the Director has just described, just how essential this service is, particularly for a small town. Councillor Horn, you have an item for general business.
Yes, I did. Thank you. I had a sweetie in my mouth, so I couldn't speak earlier. I would like to ask the CEO for an update on the workings in Main Street, Rutherglen. We've noticed there's lots of cameras and speed detectors. So if you could give us an update on the situation, please.
CEO.
Thanks for the question, Councillor, and through you, Mayor Price. Can I answer that in two parts? First of all, our Mayor Price continues to lobby and advocate hard for the retention of the state government grant, originally set aside for looking at alternate truck routes. But in more recent times, we're hoping to retain that grant funding for essential safety works in Main Street, Rutherglen. And I know as recently as just a week or two ago, we met again with the Attorney General, who's also our local upper house member, to keep pushing that view. We haven't received any formal advice yet on whether that's been retained. It's still in the budget, but it hasn't been moved to. It hasn't been moved to a category of to be determined. It hasn't gone. Still in the budget there somewhere, and we lobby hard to keep that grant funding. We have, though, in the meantime, been advised by the Department of Transport and Planning, or the old Vic Roads, if you like, that they will be installing, and they've probably installed them by now, 5 pedestrian traffic survey cameras in Main Street, with the main purpose of assessing pedestrian activity and preferred crossing points. So basically observing pedestrian behaviour, which would then provide information to them about how people do behave and react in that street. So the data collected from the cameras will be used to inform potential pedestrian crossing locations and associated safety treatment works. So just to confirm, we continue to lobby. We've not received any announcement yet about the future of that grant, but it looks like some works are being done to gather data at least. So that's a positive sign.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Shepherd, you have an item for general business.
Yeah, I received a disturbing email from a member of our LBQTIA plus community saying that they'd attended an event in Albury, a sold out queer short film festival, where there were 25 people protesting out the front with terrible banners. And this person was saying that they felt really threatened and that they moved to this region 5 years ago because of our really obvious support of that queer community, and that they're very much involved in they're leaders in the community. I don't want to say who they are, but they want to be able to continue to go to events and put on events and not feel scared in their own space. And they were asking for some show of support. I explained we do a lot here at Indigo Shire, and they were aware of that. But I suppose I'm just putting it out there as it's an issue, and we have to discuss at some stage how we can assist a minority group who are starting to feel not welcome to have events. And I think we want to support them in some way, but I'm not sure how. I just wanted to raise that as an issue.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Does anybody else have an item for general business for the council meeting tonight? No. We're now going to move into confidential. And so I'd say to the gallery, we'll move into confidential and consider the items for confidential, and then return only to close the meeting. So it's up to you whether you wait outside or treat this as the end of the meeting. So can I ask, the recommendation is that the council meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020. That's moved by Councillor Gaffney, second by Councillor Tyson. Can I have put it to the vote? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We'll now move into confidential. So we've just returned to the public component of the meeting after considering an item in confidential. That brings us to the close of the meeting tonight at 9:09 p.m. and the next scheduled council meeting will be held on Tuesday, the 30th of July, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.